Ever type something into Google and wonder how to view it finds what you're looking for
Yeah.
out of like billions of pages? It's almost like magic, right?
It's easy to forget just how powerful these tools really are.
Right.
Like, we take them for granted.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, knowing how they work, what's happening behind the scenes, that's key, essential, really.
For sure. I mean, we're talking about how we access information in the first place.
Exactly.
The gatekeepers.
Exactly.
So the source material we're diving into today compares a search engine to a giant searchable database. Kind of like a library, right?
Yeah.
But something tells me it's a little more complicated than the Dewey Decimal System.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Think of it more like a library with, well, billions of books, and those books are constantly being updated, reorganized, new ones added all the time.
Okay, so how do they even keep track of it all?
So there's two main parts. We have the index, that's like our library's collection of all the books, and then you have the algorithms.
Okay.
And those are like the super smart librarians. They categorize everything, decide what goes where.
So it's not just information getting thrown into a void and then like, fingers crossed, hoping for the best.
Not at all. There's a system, a method to the madness.
Right.
And that system has two main jobs. First, it has to actually discover new content, new books for our library, and add those to the index. And then it has to figure out which content is the most relevant, the most important for any given search.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So where does it all begin? Like, how does Google even begin to map out the entire internet?
Well, it all starts with these things called crawlers, sometimes called spiders.
Yeah.
Basically, they're like digital explorers, little bots that tirelessly explore the web 24/7.
Oh, interesting.
They follow links from page to page, kind of like,
Leaving a trail.
exactly, like digital breadcrumbs, uncovering new content as they go and reporting back to the search engine.
So it's kind of like a two-way street then. Website owners got to make sure their content is easy to find, and Google's out there actively looking for it.
You got it. Now, there are a few different ways Google discovers these new online addresses. Think of it like inviting Google to a party at your website.
Okay, I like where this is going.
A sitemap, that's the guest list, clearly lays out all the important pages, makes it easy for Google to find everything.
Makes sense.
Then you've got backlinks. Those are like your friends vouching for your party, telling Google, hey, you got to check this out.
Right.
And then there's the direct approach, URL submission. That's like sending a direct invitation to Google saying, hey, I've got something cool, come index it.
I love that analogy. So once this digital explorer finds a page, then what?
That's when the real work begins. It downloads the page, analyzes the code, tries to understand the content. It even tries to figure out how the page looks to a human user.
Wow. It's doing a lot.
It's a whole process, crawling, processing, rendering. That's where it figures out the visual layout. And then finally, indexing. That's when it officially becomes part of Google's massive library.
Hold on. So if your website's not indexed, it's basically invisible. Like you put all this work into creating all this content, and it's just out there, lost in the void.
Pretty much. It's like having a book that's not on the library shelves. No matter how good it is, no one's ever going to find it.
Right.
Which brings us to the next crucial step, ranking. Because Google has all this content, but how does it decide what we see first?
Right. What goes on page 1? Spill the tea. What's the secret sauce behind those coveted top spots?
Everyone wants to know the secret formula, right? It's what we call Google's algorithm. And unfortunately, it's a closely guarded secret. But basically, it's a constantly evolving set of rules, formulas actually, that Google uses to determine which pages are most deserving of those top spots.
So there's got to be more to it than just using the right keywords, right?
Keywords are still important, but it's way more than that now.
Okay, so what else?
Google looks at hundreds of factors, actually.
Wow.
But one of the most important is backlinks. Remember those votes of confidence from other websites?
Right, like when someone links to your article and says, this is a must-read.
Exactly. To Google, those backlinks are like gold. They see them as a sign that your website is credible, authoritative, that people trust what you have to say.
Makes sense. You're more likely to trust a recommendation from a friend than some random website you've never heard of.
Exactly. And Google's algorithms, they think the same way.
So we left off talking about backlinks, like how important they are for boosting a website's credibility.
Yeah, Google loves those votes of confidence. But it's not the whole story.
Right, there's got to be more to it.
It's not just about getting people to your website. It's about getting the right people there.
What do you mean?
People who are actually interested in what you have to offer, what you've put out there.
Okay, so how does Google know that?
Well, one of the big things is relevance.
Relevance.
Google wants to make sure that the pages it's recommending actually answer the user's question. that they're a good match.
Right, because what's the point of sending someone to a page if they immediately click the back button?
Exactly. Google pays attention to user behavior, like how long someone spends on a page, whether they're actually reading the content or just bouncing right back to the search results.
So it's all about engagement then, like Google's trying to spark a connection.
Yeah, it's like Google's playing matchmaker between the searcher and the website.
And I'm guessing, just like with dating, first impressions matter.
You got it. And you know what really impacts that first impression?
What's that?
Page speed.
Oh, right, how fast the website loads.
Exactly. Nobody wants to wait around for a slow website.
No, especially on your phone, you just give up.
I know, I do the same thing. And Google knows it too, so if your site's slow, it's going to hurt your ranking.
That makes sense.
And speaking of phones, mobile friendliness is crucial these days.
Yeah, I feel like most people I know are browsing on their phones now more than their computers.
Oh, for sure, it's only increasing. Google's got to keep up with the times.
It all comes back to user experience then. Google wants to keep its users happy.
Exactly, it's all connected. And since we're talking about user experience, we should probably touch on personalized search.
Oh yeah, everyone's been wondering about that.
It's a big one.
Like, how does Google always seem to know exactly what I'm looking for, even if I don't type it in directly?
Well, it's all about the data.
Data, right?
Google uses things like your location, your language settings, even your past searches.
All on past searches too.
Oh yeah, they keep track of it all.
Everything.
Pretty much, but they use it to try and give you a more personalized experience, to show you results that they think you'll find most relevant.
I don't know how I feel about that. Kind of creepy when you think about it.
I get that. It's a trade-off, for sure. Convenience versus privacy.
Exactly. Like, is it really free if they're using my data to make money?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
But you're not completely powerless, you know?
What can you do?
You can adjust your Google privacy settings, you can limit what information they collect, even clear your search history.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you have more control than you think.
Knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. The more you know about how these systems work, the better equipped you are to navigate them, to make informed decisions about what you share, what you see.
That's a good point.
And there's another layer to all this that we haven't even touched on yet.
Really? What's that?
Artificial intelligence.
AI?
It's starting to play a bigger and bigger role in search.
Now, that's a whole other can of worms. We're definitely going to need another episode to unpack that one.
We could talk about it for hours.
I bet. But we are actually out of time for today's deep dive. So we've been on quite the journey, exploring the ins and outs of search engines.
It's amazing how much goes on behind the scenes, right?
Right, like when you really start digging into it, it's not as simple as just typing something in and boom, there's your answer.
Definitely not. It's a whole process. And
Yeah.
a lot of it comes down to trust.
Trust, that's interesting.
Yeah, Google needs to trust that your website is providing valuable, high-quality information.
Which is where those backlinks come in.
Exactly.
Like if other reputable websites are willing to vouch for you, that says a lot.
Exactly. It's all about building that authority, that credibility.
And making sure your website loads quickly. Nobody's got time for a slow website these days.
Ain't that the truth?
Especially on mobile, you're just going to lose people.
Oh, yeah. Mobile friendliness is non-negotiable now.
Absolutely. But what I'm really starting to realize is how much our own behavior plays a role in all of this.
Oh, absolutely. This whole idea of personalized search.
It's kind of freaky when you think about it. Like Google's building this profile of you based on your every move online.
It knows what you like, what you're interested in, even what you might be looking for before you even know yourself.
Exactly.
But it uses that information to try and tailor your experience, show you things that it thinks you'll find relevant.
I guess it's convenient, but it's a bit unnerving too.
It's a trade-off, for sure. Convenience for privacy.
That's the question, isn't it? How much are we willing to give up for that convenience?
And how much control are we willing to relinquish?
Right, because the more personalized it gets, the more we're relying on these algorithms to shape our worldview.
Exactly. It's something to be mindful of, for sure.
Yeah, we got to be careful not to get stuck in those filter bubbles, only seeing what we want to see.
Couldn't agree more.
It's like anything else. You got to be an informed consumer. Do your research, be aware of the potential biases, and don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone.
Well said. And always be questioning, always be curious.
Exactly. Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of search engines.
It's been a pleasure diving in with you.
Likewise, thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration.